Previously on Prophecy of Atlantis. Queen Melusine fled to the southern desert, carrying her unborn heir, as her brother Kaelor surrendered himself to the darkness beneath the western seas. A forbidden power awakened, a crown was broken, and a king was born. Prophecy of Atlantis, Tides of Fire, Season 1. Prologue. The heir hidden, the king crowned.
The battle for the Undine throne had begun with a whisper and ended in a scream. Kaelor's forces descended on Valeria under cover of night. Sirens with blood-soaked claws, their once melodious voices now twisted into deathly wails, led the charge. The grand underwater metropolis, with its towering coral spires, glass-domed sanctuaries and bioluminescent streets, became a battleground. Melusine was reading ancient enchanted scrolls in the royal library when the first explosions shook the palace. The water around her vibrated with a viscous, dark energy, currents flowing backward, the temperature dropping precipitously. The taste of salt grew overwhelmingly bitter, like tears and rotting flesh. "Your Majesty!" Sir Kaelon crashed through the library doors, his blackened armour adorned with shimmering turquoise etchings. Blue-tinged blood flowed from a gash above his left eye, turning the water around him dark and cloudy. "We must go, now!" Before she could respond, the library wall imploded. Through the debris swam Kaelor, his black hair flowing behind him, purple shadow magic oozing from his fingertips. Where his power touched, the water boiled and tissue decayed.
"Little sister,"
he said, his voice unnaturally deep, as if something else spoke through him.
"You wear mother's crown so poorly."
He raised his hand, summoning a surge of corrupted current. Sir Kaelon dove in front of Melusine, his shield, emblazoned with the silver crest of the Divine Mother, absorbing the worst of the magic. "You've sided with the dark," Melusine whispered, the betrayal stealing her breath more effectively than any physical blow. "After everything we've been through."
"Power recognizes power,"
Kaelor replied, his eyes now swirling with purple inky darkness.
"Your rule is weak. The Undines need strength to face what's coming."
"And what is coming, brother?" she asked, backing toward a hidden passage behind the ancient scrolls. Her hand found the secret lever, a raised coral formation shaped like the constellation of the Water-bearer. Kaelor's smile chilled her to the bone.
"The awakening of far more ancient gods than ours, sister. Gods that will drown this world."
With a flick of his wrist, he unleashed his most terrifying creation, the Rot. Mindless soldiers reanimated from the corpses of fallen human sailors. Their flesh hung in strips, eyes hollow and glowing purple. "Run, my queen!" Kaelon shouted, drawing his blade forged in the depths of the abyss, the deepest part of the western seas. The metal hummed with ancient magic as it sliced through rotting flesh. Melusine hesitated, torn between duty and survival. The child within her kicked vigorously, as if sensing her indecision. "Your son must live," Kaelon insisted, parrying another attack. Blood clouded the water as he cut down 3 of the Rot in a single strike. "For Valeria and all of Atlantis!" With one last look at her brother, at the emptiness where love had once resided, Melusine pulled the lever. The wall slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel lit by phosphorescent algae.
"You'll never make it out alive, Kaelon,"
Kaelor roared.
"You cannot save her."
Kaelon's eyes met Melusine's. At that moment, they both knew the truth of Kaelor's words. "Long live the true queen. I love you, Mel," Kaelon whispered before turning back to face the horde, giving Melusine the precious seconds she needed to escape. The last thing she heard before the passage sealed was Kaelon's battle cry, followed by the wet, tearing sound of flesh giving way to something much worse. Battered and barely conscious, Melusine washed upon the desert shore. The transition from water to air was always difficult for undines, but in her state, pregnant, wounded and exhausted, it was excruciating. Her gills sealed painfully, lungs expanding as she gasped her first breaths of dry air in years. As dawn broke over the desert, Melusine forced herself to stand. Her body ached, and each step sent pain radiating through her swollen belly. The child stirred, a reminder that her journey could not end here. She stumbled forward, the endless dunes stretching in all directions. The scorching sun rose higher, and Melusine felt the air grow oppressive. The moisture in her skin began to evaporate, leaving behind a faint shimmer of scales. In the distance, twisted figures appeared. The Ashborn, fire alchemists consumed by their own fire, drawn to the scent of life and water. Their charred bodies smoked in the daylight, red embers glowing in their eye sockets. They moved slowly at first, but as they caught sight of her, their pace quickened. One touch from them meant a painful and fiery death. Panic surged through her veins. She tried to summon water, but the desert had none. Her magic faltered, producing only a weak mist that evaporated instantly. The Ashborn closed in, the air around them wavering with heat. "Please," she whispered, one hand on her belly, the other reaching toward the cloudless sky. "Divine Mother, protect your children." The sky remained cruel and empty. The Ashborn's hissing breaths grew louder, closer. Then, a low rumble echoed across the dunes, gears turning, steam hissing, glowing alchemical symbols lighting the desert sands. Out of the shimmering heat appeared a desert cruiser, forged from brass and steel, its wheels spiked for traction on the dunes. Pipes along its sides released bursts of alchemical vapor that smelled of burning sage. Glowing crystals powered its core, humming with a frequency Melusine felt in her bones. At the helm stood a tall figure cloaked in purple robes that shimmered with the faint glow of alchemical runes. Elderyn Cross, the master alchemist and lord of the oasis. His arrival was no accident. The desert had whispered to him of a dying queen carrying precious cargo. With a flick of his wrist, Elderyn conjured a glowing alchemical sigil. Flames erupted around the approaching Ashborn, consuming them in controlled bursts until nothing remained but glassed sand.
Traditional methods still work, triple purified fire essence,
he murmured, his amber eyes assessing Melusine with clinical precision.
"You are far from home, Queen Melusine,"
Elderyn said, his voice deep and steady as he guided the cruiser to a halt beside her. The scent of alchemical fire magic stinging her nostrils.
"The desert does not forgive weakness, nor do its monsters."
Melusine swayed, darkness creeping at the edges of her vision. "My son," she gasped, feeling another contraction grip her body. This one brought her to her knees, sand burning against her skin. "He is coming." The great oasis of the southern desert appeared like a mirage in the endless waste. A vast, verdant paradise surrounded by shimmering sand dunes. As Elderyn's cruiser approached, Melusine glimpsed deep blue ponds and tranquil streams fed by ancient alchemical springs, their surface dancing with unusual prismatic patterns. The scent of water, real, abundant water, made her weep with relief. "Thank you, Divine Mother," Melusine whispered. Cross Manor, in the east corner of the great oasis, blended function and beauty. Brass pipelines intertwined with climbing ivy. Towering glass greenhouses filled with rare plants that shouldn't survive in such a harsh climate, and wind-powered spiral turbines turning slowly in the desert breeze, their soft whirring creating a meditative hum. Inside, Elderyn worked with focused intensity. He was not a man given to unnecessary conversation, but his calloused fingers moved with surprising gentleness as he helped Melusine to the birthing chamber. "Why?" Melusine asked through gritted teeth as another contraction racked her body. "Why help me? The Undines and alchemists of the oasis have no alliance." Elderyn's mouth tightened as he prepared various tinctures, the glass vials clinking together softly.
I have my reasons,
he said finally.
Some debts transcend Atlantean politics.
He paused in his work, looking at her directly.
Your mother, Queen Venora, once saved my wife from drowning in the Lake of the Dryads during her Earth trial. I swore to repay that debt.
His hands resumed their work, mixing powders that smelled of sea salt and something more exotic.
Though I did not expect to fulfill that promise by delivering the heir to the Undine throne in my home.
Before Melusine could respond, footsteps echoed in the corridor. A woman appeared in the doorway, her tan face drawn with concern. Her hair, the colour of burnished copper, was pulled back in a practical braid that fell to her waist. Her hands bore the distinctive stains of an earth alchemist. "Elderyn, what is happening?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. Behind her stood a young tan girl with silver-white hair, perhaps 7 years old, rubbing sleep from eyes the same shade of amber as Elderyn's. The child peered curiously at Melusine, unafraid of the iridescent scales that now showed clearly through the queen's drying skin.
Era,
Elderyn addressed his wife.
Gather the midwives. We need those skilled in both healing and water alchemy.
He glanced at the child.
Celise, fetch my blue tome from the study, the one with the silver binding.
As they hurried to comply, Melusine clutched Elderyn's sleeve. "Listen carefully," she gasped, feeling something tear inside her. The salty and metallic taste of her blood filled her mouth. "My brother will hunt for my child. He cannot know that the boy survived."
Save your strength,
Elderyn counselled, but Melusine shook her head fiercely. "Promise me," she insisted, her opalescent eyes glowing with maternal desperation. "Promise you'll keep him safe. He is the true heir, the last of the direct line blessed by the Divine Mother." Another contraction seized her, this one bringing an alarming amount of blue-tinged blood. The midwives arrived, their silver robes shimmering in the dim light of alchemical lamps. The air buzzed with tension as they assessed the situation with practiced eyes. "She is overheating and the child is positioned wrong," one whispered to Elderyn, "and she's losing too much blood." Melusine heard but did not react. She had known, somehow, from the moment she had felt the first contraction in the desert. The Divine Mother was calling her home. "Swear to me," she repeated to Elderyn, her voice growing weaker. The alchemist met her gaze, his expression solemn.
I swear by the 7 elements and the liminal space between, your son will be protected.
Relief washed over Melusine's features. With renewed determination, she focused on bringing her child into the world. The birthing chamber, a large circular wooden room with walls etched and laid with copper alchemical runes, filled with the sounds of laboured breathing and urgent instructions. Pipes carried water that glowed faintly, ensuring the room remained cool despite the desert's oppressive heat. The scent of medicinal herbs and alchemical tinctures hung heavy in the air. After hours of struggle, as the twin full moons of Atlantis aligned in the night sky, Melusine gathered her remaining strength for one final push. The child slipped into the world with a cry that seemed to make the very foundations of the manor tremble. His first breath released a faint mist of water that danced in the air, swirling with silvery turquoise light. The midwives stepped back in awe, one kneeling in prayer. "Lucian," Queen Melusine of Thalaria whispered, her voice barely audible as she reached for her son. "His name is Lucian." Elderyn placed the newborn in her arms. For a brief, perfect moment, mother and child gazed at one another. Lucian's eyes, silver with hints of iridescent blue, reflected wisdom beyond his seconds of life. With trembling fingers, Melusine removed a silver pendant from around her neck, marked with the ancient sigil of the Undines, a trident crossed with a wave. "For him," she whispered, pressing it into Elderyn's palm. "So he'll know who he is, when the time comes." Her breathing became more laboured. The midwives worked frantically to stop the bleeding, but the blue-tinted crimson tide would not be stemmed. Outside, the wind began to howl, as if nature itself mourned what was to come. "Keep him safe," Melusine murmured, her gaze growing distant. "He is the key to more than a throne." With those cryptic words, Queen Melusine of the Undines drew her final breath. The room fell silent save for the soft cooing of baby Lucien, who seemed unnaturally calm.
You're listening to Tides of Fire, Prophecy of Atlantis by C.D. Harrison. If you'd like to experience the story beyond these episodes, the novel Tides of Fire is available now on Kindle Unlimited, as well as in paperback and hardcover wherever books are sold. Now, back to the story.
The ancient throne room of Thalaria reeked of death and corruption. Coral walls, once vibrant with life, now bore charred wounds that oozed black ichor where shadow magic had struck. Furniture lay shattered, not merely overturned, but splintered as if by inhuman strength. The water hung thick and viscous, clouded with the blue-black blood of royal guards whose bodies lay in unnatural positions, eyes still open in frozen terror. Mere hours had passed since Melusine had fled through the secret passage. The echoes of Kaelin's final battle cry still reverberated through the chamber. Not a memory, but an actual sound trapped in the water, replaying in distorted whispers as if his dying breath refused to dissipate. Kaelor stood before the empty coral throne, his robes not simply torn, but shredded to reveal flesh that no longer appeared entirely undine. Veins of midnight purple pulsed beneath his pale blue skin, threading like parasitic worms just beneath the surface. His own blue-tinted blood mixed with that of his victims, creating a nauseating pattern across his body that seemed to writhe with purpose. The shadow magic he had embraced didn't merely flow through him, it possessed him, darkening his veins and transforming his eyes into bottomless voids that leaked wisps of darkness when he blinked.
"Bring in those who remain loyal to her,"
he commanded. His voice emerged distorted, as if multiple voices spoke at once, his own layered with something ancient and malevolent that seemed to take perverse pleasure in using his vocal cords. The very water around him curdled at the sound. The rot shambled forward, not simply reanimated corpses, but horrors of partially dissolved flesh and exposed bone, their movements accompanied by the wet sounds of decaying tissue sliding against itself. Fish and smaller sea creatures fled their approach, instinctively sensing the wrongness of their existence. The rot dragged forward 3 bound figures, their restraints cutting deep enough into their flesh to draw blood that swirled in delicate swirls through the water. Marina, Sir Kaelin's sister, hung suspended between 2 rot guards, her once beautiful face marred by a gash that revealed a glimpse of cheekbone. Elderyn, his ancient body bruised and broken, still emanated dignity despite the terror in his eyes. Vestra, the elderly nursemaid who had raised both siblings, wept silently, tears mingling with the blood from her split lip. "You've failed, Kaelor," Elderyn said, his voice quavering yet determined. "Queen Melusine has escaped with her child. The true heir of Thalaria lives."
"Ha ha ha, failed."
Kaelor's laugh came out as a gurgling, wet sound that sent ripples of darkness through the water, causing nearby coral to wither on contact.
"My dear Melusine has fled like a coward, abandoning her throne and her people. She took the crown and the ancient pearl, but left behind the most important element, power.
He gestured around the throne room, where several court officials huddled like prey animals, eyes wide and unblinking. Many trembled uncontrollably, some having soiled themselves in terror.
Those with sense have already pledged loyalty to me.
"This isn't you," Vestra pleaded, her elderly face contorted with grief. "The shadow magic has poisoned your mind. I remember the boy who crafted coral figurines for his little sister, who swore to protect her always." Something flickered in Kaelor's void-like eyes, a momentary glimmer of recognition, perhaps even regret, before the darkness swallowed it like a beast consuming its prey. The court watched in horrified fascination as the brief humanity in his expression was devoured from within. "That boy," Kaelor whispered, his voice momentarily his own before dropping to an inhuman register.
"Was a fool who didn't understand true power."
The court watched in horrified silence as two rot guards emerged from a side chamber. Their partially exposed rib cages glowed with sickly purple light that pulsed in unison with Kaelor's veins. Between them, they carried the scepter of currents, its pristine white surface seeming to shrink away from their putrefied touch.
"She thought to deny me my birthright,"
Kaelor said, reaching for the scepter with fingers that extended just slightly too far, knuckles bending at unnatural angles.
"taking the crown and the ancient pearl in her flight. No matter. When I find her, I will take back what she has stolen."
As his fingers closed around the ancient rod carved from the thigh bone of the first Leviathan, an audible scream emanated from the artifact itself. The white bone blackened as if being charred from within, shadow magic corrupting it from core to surface. Ancient runes of protection didn't simply melt away. They blistered and bubbled like infected wounds before being replaced by sigils of domination and decay that carved themselves into the surface, leaking dark fluid that smoked when it touched the water. "My queen would not want this," Marina whispered, tears streaming down her face, diluting the blood from her wounds. "This artifact is blessed by the Divine Mother herself. To corrupt it is sacrilege."
"Good."
Kaelor replied, his smile revealing teeth that had begun to sharpen into points.
"The old order ends today."
From the shifting darkness that clung to him like a second skin, he drew forth something that defied natural formation. A circlet forged from black coral never seen in these waters, twisted into jagged spikes that resembled a crown of bones. The coral appeared to be in constant, subtle motion, as if still alive and suffering.
"I need no inherited crown to rule. I will forge new symbols of power, greater than anything my ancestors imagined."
As he placed the twisted circlet upon his head, the remaining bioluminescent light in the throne room didn't simply dim. It retreated, as if the living coral itself recoiled in horror from his presence. Several patches withered and died instantly, flaking away into the water. The remaining illumination cast grotesque, elongated shadows that moved independently of their owners. The water grew viscous and cold, thickening to the consistency of congealed blood. Several courtiers began to gasp and struggle, their gills laboring to extract oxygen from the increasingly toxic environment.
"Kneel before your new king,"
he commanded, and the entire assembly collapsed to the floor, some willingly, but most forced down by a crushing pressure that threatened to implode their bodies. Bones creaked audibly throughout the chamber as they fought against the supernatural weight. Kaelor turned back to the prisoners, corrupted scepter in hand. The bone now pulsed with veins of darkness that matched his own, as if they shared a circulatory system.
"Pledge your loyalty to me now, and I may yet find use for you."
"I swore an oath to Queen Melusine," Marina said, her defiance belied by the tremor in her voice. "I will not betray it, even in her absence." "And I," Elderyn added, wheezing as the pressure crushed his ancient lungs, "have witnessed the rise and fall of many who sought power through corruption.
The Divine Mother will not let this stand."
The Divine Mother.
Kaelor sneered, black fluid leaking from the corners of his mouth as he spoke.
Did nothing when my sister was chosen over me. She does nothing now, as I take what is rightfully mine.
A young noble stepped forward, Mira, daughter of one of his new generals. Her movement seemed jerky, mechanical, as if fighting against her own better judgment. "My lord, perhaps mercy toward the Queen's former servants would show your benevolence. Many still love them." Kaelor's head snapped toward her with a speed that no human neck should allow, vertebrae audibly cracking with the motion.
You dare suggest weakness at the moment of my ascension?
He gestured, and Rotgard seized her, their decaying fingers sinking into her flesh with sickening squelches. Mira's scream bubbled through the water as the corruption began spreading from their touch into her skin.
Let this be a lesson to all who would counsel the king unbidden.
With a sweep of the scepter, Kaelor unleashed corrupted water that engulfed all 4 prisoners in a churning black cloud. Unlike a merciful execution, this spell worked with agonizing slowness. Their forms gradually turned translucent, revealing their internal organs, which began to liquefy one by one. Their essences were visibly drawn into the scepter's corrupted core, not simply their life force, but their very souls. Their faces briefly appearing on the surface of the bone, mouths open in silent screams before being absorbed.
Your deaths will fuel my first act as king,
Kaelor intoned, his voice now a multi-layered abomination that caused blood to leak from the ears of those nearest to him.
I will send my forces to every corner of Atlantis. I will find my sister and her child. I will recover the ancient pearl she has stolen, and with it, I will command powers beyond imagining.
As the prisoners faded completely, leaving only empty chains to clatter to the floor with an echoing finality, a transformation swept across the throne room. The coral walls, once living tissue connected to the reef that surrounded the palace, began to calcify and die with audible creaking and splintering. Their bioluminescence didn't merely fade, but inverted, becoming pools of squirming darkness that cast negative light. Kaelor seated himself on the coral throne, which writhed beneath him in pain. It twisted and reshaped, its once beautiful form corrupting into a mass of blackened skeletal branches that reached upward like grasping hands. Small, finger-like protrusions emerged from the armrests, stroking his skin with obscene affection.
Let it be recorded,
he proclaimed, as a nearby scribe's hand trembled so violently that his ink dispersed in clouds through the water,
that on this day, Kaelor I took his rightful place as ruler of Thaleria, beginning a new age for our people. I vow to recover the sacred pearl of the Divine Mother and the crown of tides, no matter how long it takes, no matter how far I must search. Bring me everything that remains of my sister's presence,
he commanded suddenly, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow penetrated every corner of the vast chamber.
I would cleanse the palace of her memory.
Guards hurried to obey, their movements increasingly spasmodic, as if their bodies were being puppeteered by unseen forces. They returned with what personal belongings Melusine hadn't taken in her escape. With methodical cruelty, Kaelor destroyed them, not simply breaking them, but corrupting their very essence. Gowns withered to dust at his touch, jewelry melted and reformed into twisted mockeries of their former beauty. Books bled actual ink that formed screaming faces as the pages were torn. In her haste to flee, Melusine had left behind a small coral music box, a childhood gift Kaelor himself had given her. For a moment, his hands stilled as he recognized it, the corruption in his veins momentarily receding. He opened the lid with fingers that briefly appeared undine again. A haunting melody filled the throne room, a lullaby their mother had sung to them both. The darkness in his eyes flickered, momentarily revealing irises of their original silver color.
His fingers traced the intricate carvings he had spent months perfecting as a boy. For a heartbeat, he was that boy again. Kaelor, who adored his little sister, who swore to always protect her. The court held its collective breath, sensing a crucial moment in the balance. "Your Majesty?" One of his new advisors ventured carefully, his voice cracking with fear. The moment shattered like glass. Kaelor's expression contorted with sudden rage, features momentarily reshaping into something demonic before settling back into a distorted version of his face. He crushed the music box in his fist with a strength no Undine should possess, corruption spreading through it until it dissolved into black silt that drifted to the floor like the ashes of a cremated memory.
"From this day forward,"
he declared, a second voice now clearly audible beneath his own, speaking slightly out of sync.
"there is only King Kaelor of Thaleria. My sister is a traitor who has stolen royal artifacts and fled her responsibilities. I will recover what is mine and ensure her line is extinguished completely."
Throughout the palace, sea creatures fled in panicked swarms, sensing the darkness that had taken root. Only the rot remained, shambling corpses with hollow eye sockets that leaked pathetic wisps of consciousness, glowing with sickly purple energy. Those court members who had pledged loyalty now found small black veins beginning to thread beneath their own skin, spreading from their hearts outward. In the darkest corner of the chamber, something ancient stirred. Not a physical presence, but a void where reality itself seemed to thin. It whispered promises directly into the minds of everyone present, though only Kaelor welcomed the intrusion. The whispers spoke of dominion beyond the waters, of dimensions waiting to be consumed, of pleasures found only in corruption and decay.
"Yes,"
Kaelor whispered back, his head tilting at an unnatural angle as the void coiled around him like an obedient serpent.
"I can feel you. Show me more."
And from the shadows came a voice that seemed to originate from everywhere at once, reverberating through bone rather than water.
"The void remembers promises and extracts payment for betrayal."
A sudden cold current swept through the chamber, extinguishing the remaining bioluminescent lights. In the perfect darkness that followed, each person felt as if they were suddenly alone, abandoned in an endless abyss. For a moment, every living soul in the chamber heard different whispers, their deepest fears given voice. Kaelor alone heard his sister's voice, so clear it might have been spoken directly into his ear.
"Goodbye, brother. You have won."
In the renewed light that slowly returned, the court beheld their new king, and many wished the darkness had remained. For in those few moments of absolute blackness, Kaelor's transformation had completed. What sat upon the throne still wore his face, but behind it lurked something ancient and hungry that had found a perfect vessel. The king of Thaleria smiled with too many teeth, and the sea itself seemed to shudder in response.
In the quiet of the birthing chamber, Elderyn Cross cradled the infant Lucian. The child's silver eyes gazed up at him, ancient and knowing. Heir stood beside her husband, one hand on his shoulder, the other gently stroking the baby's dark hair. They had been wanting to have another child, though unsuccessful. Little Celise Cross approached cautiously, peering at the baby with undisguised curiosity. "Why does he have silver eyes, father?" she asked. "Because he carries the ocean within him," Elderyn answered softly. He raised his right palm over the infant's stomach and invoked an ancient protection spell. What shows as water will be concealed as fire. A faint golden triangle, the alchemical symbol for fire, appeared on the boy's stomach. As the symbol slowly faded into his pale skin, baby Lucian turned a sun-kissed tan, and his eyes turned the color of amber to match his adopted father's. "The waters have birthed you, and the Divine Mother has chosen you. The flames will protect you now." Elderyn looked at his wife, who nodded in understanding. "We will keep you safe until you are ready." Outside the sanctuary of the Great Oasis, the Ashborn prowled the dunes, embers glowing in their hollow eyes.